Thank you all so much for showing up to my map control mini class for KTC. Mostly today we're talking about roles in the default map control. This is week number 2 to kind of like get you guys up to speed. What's our base goals of map control, our kind of our 4-week overview. Take space safely as a team. Where are we going on the map? What part of the map are we taking, right? At the start of the round, you always want to pick a specific part of the map. Understanding like how we can fill our role better than anyone else on our rank, right? Ranking up at the end of the day, it's not headshotting everyone, top fragging every game. Understanding what my teammates' roles are, right? So we're talking about our teammates' roles, what our teammates should be doing, how we can work around them. In future lessons, we'll understand, what the gaps are in that control. Like what are the openings? Finding ways to adapt regardless of what my teammates are doing, right? A lot of people make excuses, oh, my teammates aren't doing this, and when we're taking map control, like this is an issue. Well, we're gonna talk about that in like week 4, how we can play around that, right? We'll go into depth about like understanding rotations, different lanes, what's our goal in the map control. And as always, our end goal is to hit the weaker side. We're trying to hit the weaker side, wherever the enemy team's not really playing towards, right? That's our end goal. Well, first week, we're kind of just talking about the base goals of map control, what we're trying to do. Today, we're talking about the rules within those. So what are the main roles in map control, right? How do these different agent rules affect it? First off, we got the duelist, which I like to call entry fragger, right? We're taking space. What part of the map are we taking? Usually the duelist is kind of like the one who decides that. Then we have 2 different support agents, initiators. I call them entry supports. Whatever my duelist is doing, I'm trying to support that entry with either info util, like if I'm playing Sova or Fade, flash utility if I'm playing like a KO or a Sky. KO and Sky have some info too, but the main idea between a flash utility entry or support and an info utility support changes a little bit. In this specifics part of the map, our Sova, he's darting, giving info. For our KO is supporting that jet. He can use it either throw a flash in a market, a flash D mid, but after that, the Sova's kind of watching the mid smoke or the cat smoke. My job as the flash initiator is to go support, take a little bit more space, where my job is the info initiator, maybe play a little slower. Sentinel, basically a lane holder, right? I call it a lane holder, but like, Sentinel holding a position on the map so that we can either regroup and smoke. Our goal is to isolate space, right? Isolate this mid fight with the jets. This jet can take space here. You're looking to support whatever space on the map that we're taking. This is like classic meta default on a set. As an entry fragger, we should be looking to take a desired space on the map, right? If that's middle, if that's cat, if that's a B main, if that's an A main, right? If we're taking middle, we obviously can move into a lot more splits, right? If we're taking B main and A main, generally it's to take early map control, push them back on the site, but we could use it to go into a fast hit as well, right? But if we're splitting, you're gonna want to have that entry fragger, that duelist to take those pivotal parts of the map. On a split, that's going to be middle, that's going to be cat. Within that, while we're taking that space, call for specific pieces of utility. What are things that can help me take that space? If I have a KO on my team, it's a KO flash. If I have an Omen, I Omen flash. If I have a Sky, right? Depending on what agents my team has, like call for that specific utility from those teammates to help you take that. Use your escape tools, your mobility tools to take that space safely. The main goal of an entry fragger when we're taking space on the map, if it's a main or if it's deep mid, yeah, we want to get kills, but our main goal is to take that space safely so we can impact rotations, right? If we're looking at this image right here, we have a rotation moving towards B, right? And then we have the option to always go back towards cat. When we are looking for fights, we're looking for fights on players that are impacted by team utility. Right? That's why we're calling for that utility, so we can fight those players that are impacted, right, by it. Maybe you've heard of like unfair fights versus fair fights, right? A fair fight, 50-50, unfair fight, enemies impacted by utility. As an entry fragger, we need to be hyper vigilant of our enemy setups. Be ready to cancel at any moment's notice. If we hear a rotation coming towards B, and I was planning on splitting, and all of a sudden there's forced act towards B because we had information about like where their Killjoy and Sova are, for example, I need to be the one who's dictating the pace, right? Who's understanding, can I go fast, right? If I go to my next point, like use the player numbers, use the enemy positions, the player puzzle to help make those quick decisions. As an entry fragger, I need to be on point with where are we going, because everyone's kind of following me, right? If I'm playing the initiator, I'm looking for my entry fragger, as we'll get into. I'm looking to see what part of the map he's taking, why. And as an entry fragger, like get creative. When we identify an area on the map that the enemy's putting a lot of pressure into, they're moving players over to it, look to adapt quickly, right? In this example, we put a lot of pressure on mid. I got a KO flash, I got a KO knife in a market. I smoke deep mid to pull those rotations through there, and then maybe I get information on that player moving towards CT, go quickly towards cat. What about maps like Fracture? On Fracture, I need to take A main to put pressure on them and force them back to site, kind of like on Ascent. on B main, right? When I'm taking B main control, I'm trying to take the control of B main to force them back to site so that our execute can be done easier later. Obviously, we're talking about defaulting and map control, and they're kind of like, we're kind of using those two synonymously, kind of like the same thing. But understand that our goal with this is to take desired map control. So on Fracture, what are the desired areas of the map that people want to control, right? We're going on Fracture. I want to take specific areas of the map away from the defense, right? A main and arcade in particular. Right, when I get these positions, I have more options, right? I can split onto B and I can split onto A. So when taking map control, that's what you should be looking for, right? Those desired spaces of the map where I have more options from them. So support initiators in the context of solo queue, right? Generally, we're going to be paired up with our entry fragger. We want to help them take that map control. We were talking about taking it safely, right? That's where the initiators come into play. Understand the gaps in our execute. If I don't have the utility ready to supply my jet to take space, like if I don't have this drone or this dart or this smoke ready, I need to call to my team that I'm not ready, that I need to cancel. Right? Otherwise, I need to be faster, find that gap and be like, hey, my teammates are trying to take up cat. My jet's trying to take up cat. Let me use a drone. Let me use a flash. Let me use a dog to help that. Very important with initiators, having a 1, 2, 3 step plan, right? Having a plan for what space we're taking and why. So an example of that is Sky, because when we're using our util, when we're using it as an initiator, we want to think of the util zones, right? What zones are we taking and why? And the reason for that is because I don't need to flash, KO knife, and dog A main, right? I only need to use one of those to control that zone, like let's say a Sky Dog, right? And then once we have A main control, we can move up to the next zone and then we'll use our flash to take that entry zone. So an example of that for mid would be, okay, our first piece of util was our Sova Dart mid, and then the second zone that we're trying to take is a cat, and we're droning out. So that's what I mean by util zones, and it's very important as an initiator that you're thinking through how I'm planning to take those zones ahead of time. A base rule as an initiator is always try to have at least one flash or a piece of key info util for the site execute, right? Like when we talk about smokes, it's like trying to hit a site with no smoke. The same exact thing with our initiators util. It's try to have that flash in the chamber. Try to have at least one piece of key util for the site. So that final util zone, that site util, that site zone, always have a key piece of util for that. In solo queue, someone was talking about what happens if my initiators aren't using util, or what happens if my duelists are taking unusual space. Just be ready for it, right? If I understand my job is to be associated with, be close to my duelist, just adjust to what they're doing, right? It's solo queue. People aren't all going to be on the same page. But if I identify what parts of the map, or my duelist just says, hey, I want to try to take cat, just work with it. Come up with a plan that adjusts to what they're doing already. So again, our util is very important as an initiator, right? It helps our duelist take space, but it also conditions the opponent, right? So understand the importance of what a piece of util conditions my opponent into. So let's say, for example, I'm a KO here and I throw a KO knife B main. If I've been doing that a lot throughout the game, and every time we KO knife B main, we usually just rush right after. If I just go B main and throw a knife there at the start, I'm going to pull a lot of people over towards B. Or I'm going to keep those B rotators just stuck on the site. Just a simple play of me being, okay, I know that my util is conditioned them to think that we're rushing. I can throw a knife B main and it throws off my opponents where it's going to open up my duelist. It's going to take away rotators from where my duelist is trying to hit. And then my duelist has another initiator, hopefully, either like a Sova. I know in this area, I have 3 initiators. This isn't a typical comp. I just wanted to show some stuff. But now I use my other initiator to help take that space to help take cat. So one thing to note with this type of utility, this conditioning util, it's going to almost always want to be done with a very safe piece of utility, like a drone or a dog, because I can throw a knife here and be very safe, right? I can throw a dart mid that pulls people away. I can throw a dog somewhere from a very safe position. I'm not going to die, right? But I'm going to throw that uncertainty in my opponent's head, right? They're not going to know. Are they taking B now? That every single time they've done this before, they're going to be predisposed to do that. That's the whole point of conditioning you. Sentinels. What is the Sentinels job? Again, I'm often working on the other side of the map. I'm working a different lane, controlling the rest of those open lanes throughout the map. So this example, we take early A main control. Our goal is to take A main. We want to hit A, but we don't know if we're going to get on site for sure. I don't need to be with my team because I don't have KJ ult or something. I'm going to hold B main push and I'm going to hold mid push. And when I have all that control, we have the options to do other things. We can go towards B. We can go towards mid. Also, holding those key lanes tells us if our opponents are aggressing, right? As a Sentinel, our goal is to sponge the early aggression, stay alive, like position in a way where I'm not going to just get ran down by util and an opponent's just pushing super hard into me. It's very key that we do that because it's going to tell us about our opponent's setup, right? It's going to tell us about what our opponents are doing. Let's say at the start of the round, I stay alive. I identify 3 people towards B main, like a Sova dart, Jet's pushing up, and then Reyna throws a flash. That's going to tell a lot for my team to be like, boom, let's just hit A. There's no reason to slow down. We already know that the weaker site's A because 3 people are towards B. Boom. Huge thing with Sentinels when we're working map control is the information game. The next most important thing is regrouping, right? Passive map control and middle control allows us to regroup later in the round on the other side. Also, what it allows us to do is we can throw a smoke mid, right? Let's say this happens to a lot of people in solo queue. They get stuck in a main. We regroup towards mid with a smoke cat, and that smoke cat, what it does is it moves these people from being stacked towards A, then moves them around the map. And then guess what we can do? We can re-hit. Having that mid control, having that info denied from our opponents allows us to re-hit, right? If you don't retake mid, if you don't deny that information, they're going to be stacked towards A still. No one's going to move off the site, right? What they have no reason to, right? Give them a reason to move off. We have the options to push lurk, right? We can either lurk the opposite main, we can push our lurk up mid. If the early round kind of goes really poorly, like 2 of our players die, we don't get a trade, it's a 3v5. You usually want to slow down the round and like push for early fights to kind of like even up those numbers, right? Again, you're not going to want to go for these like holding style of plays. If you have an ult, maybe the enemy team's on an eco, just don't overthink it in those times. Just go with your team, make the play with your ult, make the play around your team against the eco. So you're not really giving up gun. You're not making it harder on yourself, right? And again, if we've been holding map control a lot, we've been over lurking, it can be very obvious. So remember to like regroup to your team occasionally through spawn. It's going to throw opponents off a lot because they're going to be looking for you to like maybe lurk up cat. And in this time, I just run back through spawn. They're not ready. So Sentinels in the context of solo queue, you're going to be playing on your own a lot. But understand that I'm an outlet. I am our last resort. So playing a little slower, playing a little bit more patiently is going to help a lot with that. And I heard someone ask a question about being a duelist, your initiators aren't helping you with util. That's not your fault at that point. But the best thing you can do is call for that specific piece of utility. Again, we're talking about all these roles so that people can understand what their role is, because that's what we're trying to be the best in our role in our rank. Understand that sometimes people are going to make mistakes, but the main idea is just like try to call for it. Like understand that your teammates are people too. Trust that your teammate's going to work with you and go it that way. So smoke, is our role as a smoke player in the context of solo queue, right? A lot of misconceptions in the smoke role. First one being don't play scared. If you look at the bottom, right? Like a lot of the time smoke agents, they're like, oh, everyone else to make plays before me. I can't make a play earlier. No, you're the most important in map control. And the reason for that is one, your smokes are super pivotal, right? Smoking in a key point to like sell a fake. Also, you're going to be the last one to fill the gaps in what we're doing. So I'm going to be the one who's going to be able to identify, hey, no one's watching A main here. My killjoy has util for mid and C, but no one's watching A main. I need to be the one to do that. So not only is my util very important, what I'm doing to fill those openings on the team is the most important in terms of map control. Again, we always have to be aware of what space we're taking, right? It's going to help you time that smoke util. In this example, we're taking mid control. Our sky is faking garage. We're throwing a smoke timed well with that dog. Again, always having that smoke in the chamber. Like as a smoke player, when we're taking map control, there's very pivotal smokes that we need to use to take garage. So for example, this garage smoke, right? But we almost always need at least one smoke, right? Not having a smoke and executing, you guys have all had comps in your lives where you didn't have a smoke agent. Like understand what those pivotal smokes are. Is it heaven? Is it garage? Is it C garage when you're taking C, right? Understand what those pivotal smokes are and make sure you always have a smoke for that. Again, talking about holding those adjacent open lanes. It's generally going to be the lane that your Sentinel, your team is not taking. But again, as Yvette said, you got to take some risks sometimes. You can't just like sit back. You can't just like hold and expect to win. Be ready to like, hey, we'll leave A open sometimes. Be ready to regroup your team and go fast. And again, smoke players are the best at filling the gaps and the openings around the map. Understanding what the rest of my team is supposed to do within those roles makes that a lot easier. Understanding the lane control, understanding the enemy team's positions, right? Again, smoke agents, they usually control the spike. I like to throw the spike in between me and my team, right? Because then when I go regroup with my team, I go pick it up, right? So in this example, we were taking mid, throw the spike in mid window at the start of the round. I'm holding A. A nice thing about it being between me and my team is if I die because they push up and they get a kill on me because I'm taking some risk, I'm holding a good angle for myself. Sometimes I die, right? But now my teammates, because it's between us, they can go pick it up pretty easily, or at least they can go defend it. Should always be within a reasonable distance of your team. Be ready to turn from that slow, methodical map control style to regrouping, re-hitting fast as possible, right? Look at the game state. What are the numbers in the situation? How many players are alive on the opponent team? How many players are alive on our team? Be ready to just go from a slow style of play, holding my position, making sure we're not getting flanked, speed it up, go right towards the other side of the map. And again, cannot stress this enough. The reason I brought it up initially when I was talking about smokes is do not play scared. Look to make plays around the team just as much as everyone else. Everyone else on the team has to make a play at times. Just because I'm a smoke agent, staying alive late in the round doesn't mean we're going to win the game. Last thing to mention about smokes, just make sure when you're going to smoke, you have a safe position to smoke. So you can play aggressive, you can play kind of lurky on Astra, but you have to be really aware of like those safe positions to smoke where like you're not just smoking out in the open, or you're not smoking in a position where someone's just going to flank you. That's the biggest thing to think about with Astra when you're trying to play a little bit more aggressive. But yeah, thank you guys so much. I hope you guys learned a lot and have a good rest of your day. All right, good luck in your rank grinds in the new act. Have a nice day, everyone. Bye.